Well, what happened was that I'd heard on the news that Colin was leaving. I had no idea why, and I got in touch with my agent, said there's a job going at the BBC, and he got in touch with JNT, and they spoke, you know, and he said, you know, Silvester who, and my agent said yes, and all that kind of stuff went on, and then he hung up, and then the phone rang again, and it was the producer, Clive Doig, who I'd worked with a lot. And he'd phoned up JNT and said, listen, I think you should see Silvester McCoy for Doctor Who. And that got JNT interested, because he liked kind of synchronicity and, you know, the stars in the right place, and all that kind of stuff. Luckily, I was playing the Pied Piper at the National, a play that had been written for me by Adrian Mitchell, and John came and saw it, and later I learned, went back and said, I found my new doctor. So that's how I got it.
And did you have to read for the part, audition as well?
Well, I had to go along and meet him a couple of times, and normally as an actor you go along and, you know, you've got a little bag full of charm that lasts for about 10 minutes, you know, and then they say next. And I went along and, you know, and I got half an hour, and then it carried on, and then by 2 hours I was delving so deep into my charm. I don't know where it came from, but all the time inside sweating. How can I keep this up? He's going to find out. I'm going to, you know, I'm going to blow this. I'm going to blow this job. I'm, you know, like every other one. And but I didn't. I managed to get through that. But the powers that be didn't think that I had the seriousness and the strength to be, you know, a strong doctor. They knew I had a comedic background, and they doubted my ability. So, John was asked to do a screen test, and John set up a screen test of 3 sketches, and then he got 2 other doctors, 2 other actors to play the Doctor, and both of those actors were totally wrong for Doctor Who. And so that's how I got it, because John cheated, and, you know. I mean, those other 2 actors are great actors, but they were just so wrong, you know, they were just so wrong for Doctor Who, and that's how I got the part, really.
And at the point when you got the part, do you know where the scripts were already written for that season? How much were you able to influence your character? I mean, was that discussed beforehand, or were you just given the scripts and it was up to you to go ahead with it? Or, I mean, Ben might know the answers to know.
Well, no, Sylvester's main contribution in terms of scripts, a lot of having lots of good story ideas was, please, can I have less dialogue?
Yes, no, absolutely. The editor of that we just watched, I mean, it's amazing. All the other bits in between that I just don't remember. That was really. But yeah, no, what happened was, yeah, I arrived. I didn't know anything about what had happened to Colin. I hadn't really followed Doctor Who for years. I'd been working. I didn't, you know, I had no knowledge of the past history. So they just gave me the script, and, you know, and it didn't quite fit. But then it, you know, did in a way in the end. I mean, I remember thinking, this sounds maybe like a Colin line, those moments. They gave me his costume because he forgot to turn up for the, you know, the regeneration to hand over, you see. What do I do? I don't know, really. So they gave me the costume and they put me in it, and they lost me for 3 days. Eventually they did find me, and then they gave me this curly wig, curly blonde wig. They stuck it on me, and I reminded them of Groucho Marx, so that's why they put me face down on the floor so no one could see me before the hairy hand of Doom pulled me over.
And at the start we read out the introduction from Mallory Blackman, who touched on the fact that she had seen you as this kind of this more kind of comic, I think she said Chaplain-esque character at the start,
yeah.
And then by the end you were getting kind of darker and stuff. I mean, was that your input making it darker, or was that Andrew Cartmel, or how did that go?
Well, it was kind of a teamwork thing, you know, it was both of us really. It was quite amazing how together we worked. I mean, Andrew was, you know, very generous. He would always say, "Oh, we're going to get all the writers for the next season together. Come along, Sophie and Silvester, and we'll meet them and talk to them. And if you've got any ideas, do it." And of course, I arrived totally ignorant of Doctor Who, not knowing what I was supposed to do, just with my own comedy baggage, as it were, and that's what I gave. And then I suddenly realised, wow, this is an amazing part. You could do anything with this. You could be anybody. You could really explore great depths. And so that excited me, and I went to Andrew and it excited him, and so we kind of together, you know, kind of worked out a vague plan of how you become much more dangerous. I wanted to bring back the mystery of the first Doctor. I remember thinking, that's what I'd really like to do, because when he first arrived, nobody knew what it was about. And I thought, this would be really great to somehow recreate that, somehow get that back. I felt that over the 25 years, there was, maybe too much known about him, so that was the idea, was to layer it down, peel off the onion layer and expose some other person. Who was he really? Who is he? That was the dream.
So Bonnie Langford moved over and changed over doctors, and she came with you initially. And then there was a story where kind of Bonnie and Sophie kind of handed over effectively. And I just wondered, were you involved in the casting, or did you kind of in audition or anything work with Sophie, or was she presented to you
No, what happened was, yes, that season they knew that Bonnie was going to leave, because I think that's part of the tradition. She would leave in the next season, I think. And so each story, they were trying out a new young companion. But then something happened, and then suddenly Bonnie was leaving on that particular story. What was it called?
Dragonfly.
Yeah.
Well, it was the last one. She didn't have any more left.
Did she not?
No.
All right. Oh, well, anyway, she was leaving on Dragonfire. I didn't realise that. I thought she was going to leave next season, halfway through. Anyway,
She was. She might have been.
Yeah.
But then she wasn't.
Then she didn't.
And then she didn't.
And then she left.
But they were trying out companions.
Yes, so they were trying out companions. And anyway, so then they came to me and said, oh, what do you think? Bonnie's leaving, and what do you think of Sophie and as a new companion? And I went, oh God. And then said yes, and that was it really.
So, Sophie, can you tell us then about your involvement with the role? She was incredibly young at the time. Obviously, bearing in mind how many years later, you must have been sort of 10 or 11. And can you tell us about how you became involved with the show, at what point, and how that kind of worked out?
Yeah, sure. I was up in Manchester doing Fiddler on the Roof and heading in a sort of career in musical theatre, really, with Top Hole in the back row of the chorus. And went down.
He was in the back row of the chorus. Wow.
Yeah, we swapped. I started playing tenor.
Yeah, that would surprise me.
Anyway. That's a slight reference to how bossy I am. Anyway, yeah, so they were looking for somebody who could ride a motorbike and who could play 16, even though I was, 24 at the time. And so I went down for an audition, I met the director, and then got a recall a couple of weeks later and went and met John Nathan Turner in his office, which was full of Doctor Who memorabilia. Do you remember the office? Yes. Dalek curtains. And smoke, yes. Smoke. I couldn't have that now. And then on the wall there was this big sort of display cabinet with merchandise in it, which was amazing. And right in the middle was a pair of those 1970s Tom Baker underpants with Tom Baker right in the strategic position.
And you had a big nose.
So that was quite impressive, and I thought, oh well, I've met him anyway. At least I've met, been him.
I went in there was a row of videotapes. I have those.
There you go.
I just remember it was red. Just the
It
whole
was
thing
very red.
Very, very red. It was very, very straight. Everyone else very. This was Threshold House, which was essentially just an office block, and it was where all the television drama. You went in there, everybody else's office. There was just desks and chairs, and it was like really, very boring. And you went into his office, and it was like red with memorabilia all over.
Yeah, themed.
Themed, a themed office.
Sophie, how familiar were you with the show before you joined it?
Well, I watched it as a child, obviously. Everybody did, didn't we? And John Pertwee and the maggots and all that. And but I didn't really even know that it was still going when I went up for the part. So, friends would sort of joke with me and said, oh yeah, Doctor Who's girl. But then I couldn't believe it. I actually got the part without any screen test, without ever having been in a TV studio. And again, it was John Nathan Turner, this hunch he had. He just, I don't know, he thought I'd be good. And I went for 3 episodes of Dragonfire, and then halfway through, I remember Tony Selby, who was playing one of the characters in Dragonfire, saying, I'll tell you what, Soph, you'd be a great companion for the Doctor, you'd be really... And I had in the back of my mind, because I'd been cast for 3 episodes, but maybe, perhaps, they wanted me to be the new companion, which was just unbelievable. And then they did, actually, the first day in studio, I remember, for Dragonfire, John Nathan Turner coming down from the gallery, you know, those fire escape steps, blink, 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 lit up a fag in the studio, which again, you know, who'd have thought it, and said, well, we're on if you're on. And I took that to mean that I got the part. And then, of course, when I told Tony, oh, see, that was me, I told you.